Today's case is about a young girl, Katie Beers, who was also known as the Girl in the Wall. 9-year-old Katie Beers was abandoned by her mom, then used as a slave by her godmother and the godmother's strange husband, before being kidnapped and trapped in an underground room. For over 3 weeks, she went through this terrible oppression. The Long Island police started to investigate this complex situation, and the investigators began focusing their attention on the suspects who were the child's immediate family. After all, most kidnappings are arranged by the very relatives of the children they report as missing. 10-year-old Katie Beers crouches, hungry and afraid, imprisoned like an animal in an underground room the size of a coffin. No one can hear her screams, as the skillfully built room is soundproofed and locked. Katie's captor comes once a day to feed her, assault her, and tell her he loves her. This was not imagined. It was a living nightmare for Katie. In the small town of Bay Shore, Long Island, 10-year-old Katie is living a life that seems like a fairy tale. Katie was an unwanted child, and her mother Marilyn often left her with her godparents, Linda and Sal. You might have thought things would get better for the child in her new home, but sadly, that was not the case. Instead of finding refuge, Katie faced mistreatment. Rather than being nurtured, she was made to take on household tasks like cooking, laundry, and picking up items for her guardians.
Husband Sal.
I was their servant, whether it was to do the laundry, to clean the bathrooms, to cook dinner. That was my purpose to her growing up.
Despite the difficult circumstances, this brave young girl somehow managed to change the mindset of the person who had kidnapped her. Uncle Sal abused Katie since she was a toddler, turning her life into a living nightmare. When she finally built up enough courage to tell Aunt Linda about this, the woman called her a liar. On the other hand, Katie's neighbor, John Esposito, was her only close friend. Katie was not allowed to attend school, and the kind-hearted John would often keep her company. However, the police soon realized that John himself was an even stronger suspect in Katie's disappearance. Witnesses reported that on the day Katie went missing, Esposito had entered the arcade alone. Additionally, Detective Verone confiscated Esposito's answering machine and tape, which revealed that the message Katie had left was pre-recorded, indicating a lack of background noise that would be expected in a real call. As a result of this evidence, John Esposito found himself under intense scrutiny and became the primary suspect in the investigation. Armed with the new evidence, the investigators searched Esposito's home. While the residence appeared to be a dilapidated bachelor pad, there was no sign of the missing girl. The police then placed Esposito under close surveillance. By this point, the case had gone public and was receiving widespread media coverage. 17 days into the investigation, Esposito unexpectedly turned himself in. He led the police and FBI agents to his house, where he revealed a hidden room behind a bookcase in his study. After lifting a concrete block, the officers discovered a 7-foot shaft connected to a cramped, dungeon-like space. In this confined 6-by-7-foot bunker, they found a coffin-sized box, a couple of TV sets, a toilet, and, to their shock, the captive Katie Beers alive and unharmed.
The door opened and there was a man that I didn't recognize.
And I remember them saying,
Esposito had been keeping the young girl imprisoned in this concealed underground room.
He picked me up and carried me into the closet where I realized he was opening up. And then he exposes this hole. And
the tunnel had been set up behind the walls of his house, carefully and expertly crafted, as if constructed by a master of such illicit engineering. Katie was forced to crawl through this meticulously built passage, compelled to make her way until she reached a trap door at the end, no doubt leading to some sinister destination. Whoever had orchestrated this elaborate setup was evidently an expert in their dark craft, demonstrating a level of preparation and technical prowess that was deeply unsettling. So what actually happened? Let's dial back to the day of Katie's hostage. Esposito picked up Katie and took her to his home. He let her play some video games and then suddenly grabbed her and pushed her down a hidden shaft behind a wall in his study. The food she was given was insufficient. It was just junk food and soda. Imagine a young girl having to survive on this kind of diet alone. To this day, Katie cannot stand the taste of after-dinner mints, likely due to her traumatic experience. Despite the dire circumstances, the resilient young girl refused to give in. She did not lose hope, which ultimately proved pivotal in aiding her survival. Despite the dire circumstances, Katie was able to survive through her resourcefulness and resilience. The truth is, she wasn't as afraid of Esposito as one might expect. Instead, she was carefully wearing him down from the beginning. When Esposito asked Katie to lie down and play dead in the hopes of throwing off his pursuers, Katie refused. The smart girl knew that going along with this plan would likely mean the end of her life. She was extremely cautious, sleeping very little out of fear that Esposito might try to take a photo of her while she slept. Katie also refused to touch any food that was not pre-packaged, fearing Esposito might try to tamper with it. When Esposito brought in shackles to restrain her, Katie had already noticed a keychain on a shelf and hid one of the keys under her pillow. She was able to use this key to unlock the padlock when Esposito left, but then promptly rechained herself to avoid arousing suspicion. Through her quick thinking and vigilance, Katie was able to outmaneuver her captor, biding her time and waiting for an opportunity to escape safely. Throughout her captivity, a television kept Katie company. She closely watched the news, knowing that the police and FBI were tirelessly working on her case. But because Katie was able to unchain herself, she also had access to another TV, a closed-circuit one that Esposito had installed in the bunker. This allowed her to see what was happening right outside her captor's house. Seeing the ongoing search efforts gave Katie hope that there were chances for her to be released. This knowledge helped her stay strong and resilient during her ordeal.
During my captivity, I was asking John Esposito questions about how I was going to go to school, what I was going to do to survive. I wanted to get married and have kids, and he would always have witty remarks right away, like, oh, you'll have kids with me, you'll marry me, you'll do this with me.
At 1 act in the afternoon, Katie heard John Esposito coming downstairs. This was strange, as he usually didn't come down until the evening when the news came on. This time, he wasn't alone. Katie quickly had just a little time to get into the box and chain herself up. She found it odd that Esposito was there so early, since he normally wouldn't arrive until later in the day. The unexpected early arrival of Esposito, along with the fact that he had company this time, made the situation feel very different to Katie compared to his typical visits. She had to quickly take action to hide herself away before he could reach her. Katie heard other voices and thought they were Esposito's friends, and came to take advantage of her. But when the lid of the box was opened, one of the men said, "We're the police. You're safe now." Katie seemed unharmed as she was taken from the scene. As she sat in the car, she leaned against the window and finally closed her eyes. Esposito was then taken to Suffolk County Jail, placed on suicide watch. At the police station, Katie changed clothes and was questioned about the details. She was then taken to a children's hospital, where she was told she would not be returning home. The young girl cried, missing her family. On January 13, 1993, Esposito confessed through his lawyer and led police to where Katie had been held for 17 days. In the aftermath, Katie would later reflect that her abduction, though a traumatic ordeal, ultimately helped her escape the abusive situation she had endured with her godparents. It was a disturbing but truthful assessment of how the events unfolded. The godfather figure, Sal, faced justice for his transgressions. He was convicted and sentenced to 12 years in prison, where he ultimately died in 2009. A married couple, Barbara and Ted, became Katie's new guardians. With the help of a detective, they worked to support Katie and her brother, who had also been abused by Esposito. As an adult, Katie decided to share her story in a memoir entitled buried memories. She now lives in Pennsylvania with her own family and says the difficult experiences made her who she is today. As for the captor, Esposito, he was given a 15 years to life sentence. However, he did not live to see the end of his term, as he was found dead in his cell shortly after his fourth parole hearing in 2013. Thank you for watching the video. If you liked the video, make sure to subscribe to Crime Lane and let us know your thoughts about this case. Also, let us know which story we should cover next and we will feature in our next video with your story. Till then, goodbye.